success that went into our last parachute operation, which was the crossing of the Rhine.
That was the largest airborne operation of the war.
That was the operation when 6th Airborne Division was put in conjunction with the 17th U.S. Airborne Division to move into a position between Wesel and Emmerich on the main road up from the Rhine River, and we were to go in there.
We received a very detailed briefing, of course, in the concentration area prior to the drop, where every man was briefed 3 times in detail as to what to expect.
That was a daylight drop. By the way, Normandy was a night drop and scattered all over the place. The Rhine drop was a daylight drop, 10 o'clock in the morning, right over top of the German positions.
The night before the drop, we were listening to the radio, and we were told that the Germans would be expecting parachute drops across the Rhine.
The German general who was in charge of the defense area had decided, since it was 10 o'clock, there was not going to be an airborne attack, so he sent some of his men to the river to stop the Germans coming across, the Allied coming across the river.
I'll never forget this, the American pilot of C-47 looking at myself and my men loaded down with heavy equipment, and said to me, he said, I feel embarrassed dropping you fellows in an enemy position and drop in broad daylight. Seemed to have no concern for himself at all. At 5 minutes to the drop, the red light went on, and that meant the jump master got us on our feet. Stand up, hook up, check your equipment, sound off for equipment check from the rear to the front. 18 men in the stick. Then when the green light went, out we went. And out the door we went, and with about 5 of us still in the aircraft, the engine opposite the door was hit. And it was just a flash of fire from the engine, crossed all the windows. And this was a bit of a shock, of course, and I don't think I jumped. I was kind of thrown out the door. But that's my most memorable experience, getting out of that aircraft and thinking of that poor pilot. He and his crew were lost.
The Armada that we were in came 10 minutes early before our artillery had knocked out all the German positions or did as much damage, so there was a lot of them left to fire. And it was a bit of a shock when I came out of the aircraft and heard all these shots going by, and I look up and see my chute, a whole bunch of holes in my parachute, and I knew that they were coming close.
As soon as my parachute opened, looked down, I recognized where I was immediately.
This was a case that the navigation was right on target. The entire battalion landed within the space of a football field.
We landed on the drop zone, under fire.
And this was planned, and the result was we lost quite a few men, but we had so many men in the air at one time, almost 2,000 men, that we just overwhelmed them. What happened to me was a gust of wind caught my chute, drifted over trees and down through the trees, and I got hung there about 8 feet off the ground. And I got jammed up, my arms jammed up, helmet halfway over my eyes. Couldn't get my fighting knife to cut myself free, and I hung there and watched all these damn branches falling as they swept the trees with machine guns. Anyway, lucky again, the 2 other pairs came along, and Britt lifted a short guy up. He grabbed my ankles, and the weight of the 3 of us pulled me out, and we all went down and tumbled on the ground. So I got out of that all right.
There were 3 houses on the side of the drop zone. I could see German soldiers running to set trenches near the houses, and I knew we were in for a fight right away.
We did lose the commanding officer, who was a very, very close friend of mine.
I got out of my parachute harness very quickly. There were bullets flying over my head. The crack past your ears makes you wake up quickly. The idea and what we were told is, look, don't just lay there. Get on your feet and do something. And we were trained to expect this and to do it. So we charged this position and we knocked it out.
Our objectives were seized and held within the first 35 minutes. All of the prisoners captured, everything sustained.
And by 5 o'clock, the battle was over, and the troops come from the Rhine and met up with us with their armor. So we had a little bit heavier equipment to fight with.
The casualties, while they were high, they were not excessive, and they fell below what was anticipated. But it was a superb operation.
To ensure the efforts of one Campara will never be forgotten, a monument stands in Le Mesnil.
The crossing of the Rhine signaled the beginning of the end of the war. There were pockets of resistance and counterattacks, but as the Allied forces advanced on Berlin, the larger issue became the number of prisoners being taken. The Canadian CO, Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Nicklin, died in the Rhine drop, to be succeeded by the fourth and final commanding officer of the 1st Canadian Parachute Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Fraser Eady.
The Germans were fighting a rear guard action to hold us up. They'd be going down the road and all of a sudden they'd be fired upon. So we'd mount an attack against them and they'd just disappear. This is something like what happened in the Band of Brothers, the 101st Airborne Division fighting in the woods. They'd advance a little distance, be fired upon, lose a few men, mount an attack, and these people would just disappear in front of you. It was very, very frustrating, but it was one thing you had to tolerate.
They even opened up at us with anti-aircraft guns firing horizontal. That was not a very pleasant experience. Anyway, they kept retreating as we advanced.
But as time went on and things got more stabilized, and the fighting got a little less severe, we did capture a lot of prisoners.
And from then on, things seemed to start crumbling a bit.
Matter of fact, we did capture a lot that we could have easily killed. And in the film, Band of Brothers, it struck me at times that there were men shot who should have been captured. Very often, too, you capture a position and with a lot of people in it and a lot of enemy, and you just take the whole kit and caboodle prisoner.
I took 2 prisoners. They were coming up the road. I told my section not to shoot at these people, that I thought they might be attempting to surrender. One of my people didn't hear me or decided to make his own decision and started firing at them. He didn't hit them. They went to the ground. But who do you think has to go across that road to find out if they're dead or alive? It was me. I went across the road. As soon as I had them on the road and they were safe, somebody started shooting at me. And he got me. He shot me in the leg with a machine gun. And so I I jumped behind a tree and hollered for a medic. And the medic that came to rescue me was a German. I had 3 inches of bone out of my leg, and he took care of it very well. But most importantly, as my guys were carrying me on the road, we were under mortar fire again. And as soon as the German mortar started to fall around us, this medic threw himself on me to cover my body to make sure I didn't get hit. That's a pretty impressive piece of action. Don't know who he was, couldn't find out who he was. He delivered me, went with the people that were carrying me and took me right up into the medical unit and had me looked after, but they wouldn't let him in the operating room. So that's the last I saw of him.
We treated the prisoners well. We saw that they were fit. We sent them back to the rear.
On our way up to the Elbe River, at a place called Bergen-Belsen, just outside of Celle.
We came across concentration camps.
And it was a shambles, I can tell you.
With over 3,000 displaced persons, most of them Poles, in it.
The prisoners in there were not